Hello. There is a damage to Anderson Cooper's personality because he didn't have a father reportedly. It's one of the reasons. For example, and our founding parents' identity was stolen in our faces. They use the word every time they bring up the word white supremacist, they have obligations to have a quality of fact cheaping nature to explain that breaching method that forced roles with those crazy laws. And for example, with slavery simultaneously, sickly distinctly against every single person. Witch trials, no. Crazy laws that would kill everyone if they were talking about building houses outside of the context that were monitored, per my professor at CCSU. In other words, you internationally monitored database relationships. They would watch you. And if you met outside of that, they would hurt you. Now, these are also people, CCSU also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with the intelligence community too, though. Still criminally foreign influence, delusions, wrought. They are sequence shifts. They have people making opinions and using words from the dictionary since before the intelligence community with physical delusions had them use additionally sickly, like radical, and or like see radically the identity the sciences share individually grouped together when you bring up slavery, how their value is denied. Those are the sciences. How correlation to the value of what is simultaneous is denied. And then rather than answering the person who never had A through Z, never had the right campus, so A through Z is going to have the wrong answer, and we're still forced to be these sick fake sides, white or black, and it's supposed to mean something it doesn't. And in other words, where they agree to look at things like, in other words, why and how there is manifest problems like with radical and extremism. Extremism is about being what is thorough. You have non-real premises. You have reactions to things that you see, and you're attaching to them denials of the what is actually recorded before that. So, for example, CNN has roles with FBI directors through administrations involved with them consciously and with delusions, though, simultaneously. So, in other words, then they pretend it's personal. It has natures that won't present the sequence shifts, and those predicate acts allow them to be premises. Because these are people in the background who've been roles typing fake things in databases, interpreting things wrong. Investigations and investigators have been hiding life progressions. They've been shown needs to do so since they were kids at locations with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, hundreds of countries. They're all shared here and there. They never had integrity of logic. You guys are still with physical delusions, criminally foreign influence, premises treatment is exactly the way employed by the breaching method. And I mean the definition of employed, not having anything to do with money. If you're the rich, wealthiest person in the world, for example, if you can't swim, you can't afford to be on a raft in the middle of the ocean with no life preserver. In other words, diction, a quality of fact treatment that doesn't have to debate nonsense. And if it has to debate nonsense, that where and how they won't take the actually legitimate quality of fact treatment nature that is obligated to be spoken for every human. I mean, and you're supposed to when they're right. So they're keeping them right to keep it, but and making them blame the other things other themselves because they're measuring and maintaining. Everyone's exploiting our difference that is naturally in play. Thanking God it and increasingly self-valuing how it's could be used to hide their actual actually recorded integrity of or quality of fact qualities and aspects of fact treatment nature as criminal insidiousness. One can't explain American history properly without using the phrase criminal insidiousness. because there are criminal insidiousness, positive treatments and negative treatments that were and are and can be in collusion with each other against identity. So courts that would be involved with witch trials or slavery and are exploiting that after they sustained roles with it. They can't afford what is actually recorded inherent actively and progressively means by our to answer questions. And so it is not by accident through time, the obligations to have responded to properly what force manifest what they could get away with calling white supremacy. And where and how, for example, they have the intelligence community, like a Kolvinsky's family, for example, of military police that are KKK, Confederate flag themed. And they have roles with training of police forms and people that work for prisons. They have crimes with their family members and with the patients and criminals before they are caught on and off campuses. They have roles with a vertical and horizontal database delusion stacking method and delusion stacking method that measures and maintains people entertaining treatments of people entertaining other things, others, or selves, blamed for what the breaching method caused and keeps manifest. Sickly distinctly to keep out sickly not distinctly from being discerned. And nature keeps demonstrating that, but we are not having free speech to speak to demonstrate this. Greetings. So, and the Facebook pages of CNN, Fox News, and NBC are also having been recorded involved with criminally foreign influence uses of elections locations, including schools, including town offices, including religious locations, because that's also involved with various juxtaposed natures of child abuses and elderly abuses, and with crime methods of people describing the behavior of others without those others being allowed to show how exceptions and exception nature are being denied. Because they start fights between people and men and women, where, for example, women want to go about life. They don't want to worry about, but who cares? That's just what they said. Don't let it go. These are people that are planting evidence as fact, treatment, nature oriented wise, where they're going to go bring things before courts, with the court's family members and selves, leaders of them, and all positions with it. They're kept needing to hide. They're shown as needs to hide life progression, needs to hide their actually recorded natures, relevant to each location's actually inherent active and progressive means of correlation nature to discern their actually recorded natures. Like, for example, when they use phrases like white supremacy, and when people respond to it, leaving out how black and white identities of law were and are in collusion with that. The countries are grouped, individually grouped, and together tacticalitarian from how we are by nature. And that's specifically to have nature demonstrate that, and effectively had made nature's demonstration of that the real cause of negative value nature progression to action natures, the breaching method, blamed on other things, others, ourselves. Exactly the way the breaching method wanted and needs. So why and how locations don't have representation like New York City's in a torture trap? Worse, it's not just slavery. It's slavery, torture, identity theft, identity fraud, and slanders simultaneously. People pretend that such is debatable. So when there was slavery and there were Jim Crow laws, if someone would use fact, treatment, nature properly and say that, this is a form of slavery still. Our founders left us to demonstrate this, abridged identity, the ground locations forged by the breaching method to measure and maintain roles with it, or diversions from it so they could be sensed and heard. And or pseudo helped, because the breaching method kept and keeps arrays. The difference of sides, physical delusions, sides to the physical delusions still when they use black-white treatments. That breaching method put that there. No one understands it because they blamed other things, others, themselves. They hide between names with narratives in history that left and leave out the increasing value of criminal insidiousness as per its relativity to the positive treatments and to the negative treatments and to the identity treatments that were and are in collusion. We have all the answers we need. We have all the means we need to reveal positive value nature, progressions, action nature. You have to follow mandated law, locations. See, these are people with psychology and psychiatry interstates with both parties' constituencies. Physical delusions wrought with phobia narratives. They have, and criminally foreign influence simultaneously. And with like mental diagnosis narratives. They have all kinds of mental diagnosis involved with crime methods where they type fake conversations with people and with their family members. We have a whole bunch of countries here involved with mental health doctors with physical delusions, in other words. You haven't had mental health people legitimate. Now they've been getting away with it because their natures of juxtaposed natures of organized crime at locations with other branches of government, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and worse, keep involved all mixed, keeping everyone differentially criminally foreign influenced, but increasingly too. So everyone says, "Oh, it's not my fault. Forget such." But when people saying that, right when you're saying that, you don't have the integrity to speak for what is simultaneous. You don't have the integrity to speak for the law, but they're speaking for it anyway. So they're backed into that sick logic with the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones as psychopaths. And as people who debate the law by calling people names. Criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents that give benefit of the doubt to people recorded themselves at locations exploiting exceptions in exception nature, including the FBI directors and the uses of the phrase "the big lie" and uses of the names of the political leaders of each party. Increasingly forced to collusion and or to self-value rules differentially increasingly with and as locations, areas, and states criminally foreign influence and pretending others, screening it, blaming on other things, others ourselves, where and how nature demonstrates that the correlation nature. So all these other countries take parts with methods that are manifest with our campuses. And, they make exceptions, and not just our campuses, on and off them. All identity, the ground identities of sophistication are kept to all locations, needing to hide more and more lie progression to all spots. It's where the identity, the ground engineering of our fact sheet nature really and how it really needs to be spoken for, defended, understood as the nature of the law. I am not a lawyer. Also, the delusions and the criminally foreign influence persuasions of lawyers and the crime methods of lawyers are also evidences, also where and how they offensively have been preventing mandated law people from telling. How they get away with it is contributing fabricated audio and video, as in roles replacing what is actually recorded with fabricated audio and video. The lawyer has been doing this with the interbranch and ones with badges. So in other words, it is a serious problem now. You guys waited too long to explain to the little kids where and how that breaching method applied uses of white supremacy with the opinion natures and the physical delusions and the conviction natures of people. Countering uses of it wrong because they're in collusion. Self-valuing means and needs to pretend they have integrity or are smart, where they're preventing that which is naturally smart, its voice. The kids in New York City are smarter than the people on CNN and their sources on Fox News and MSNBC, many ways. All exception nature, they are increasingly valuing, used to get over on the overtly exploited, / insidiously. Greetings, my child from the great beyond. How you doing, Ron Adams? So, you ever hear them use this phrase, white supremacy, and everyone's shock and awe in response to it? Because the breaching method made sickly distinctly everyone's education, people A through Z, abridged and defenses of itself value rolls with it. It's abridged sciences. It can't defend the logic everyone's manifest as, having been valued, manifest as, having entertained, and afford the Constitution unabridged. It's revelations. It has means to show all locations how to force a quality of fact human nature where finite individuals' voices are not denied. And that makes the species body rise. That makes trial tribes. So it is increasingly valuable evidence, positive, where how the branches are so overtly slashed insidiously, criminally foreign influence, and all exceptions, exception nature tied to them. So CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, they have sources, and they came through before those were journalists, before they were judges, before they were lawyers, before they were criminally foreign influence when they were involved with databases, criminally foreign influence uses of them, and lie progressions, where they're using it also vertically and horizontally. They have people involved with the Department of Transportation, Department of Motor Vehicles, for example, in the intelligence community, in the military. They all offensively made that one of the things that ties them, as the people too, involved more World Trade Center predicate acts. They made instances like a Tom Perone and a Danielle Perone tried to film instances to pretend I knew them, and they were pretending to be mad at me for fake reasons. And they had a whole bunch of people making confessions at once. They timed where I was going to be, and at their house 2 times. I was tricked, hurt, forced, persuaded to be there. And one time at Millwoods Park. It has something to do, a whole bunch of people at CCSU and Trinity College involved also with the spots next to the state of Connecticut congressional offices, as rules also with fake words with me and people tied to me by the Connecticut News. So they pretend passions and emotions when they hear about things like, interactions with the police, because criminally foreign influence, uses of criminally foreign influence statutes, they give the benefit of the doubt to the courts and to the police forms and or to the politicians, etc. But they left out exceptions and exception nature. They left out what is actually recorded. So not one reported true. Not one knew even know how to. Not by accident. So right through, so they don't care about democracy, obviously. They don't care about mandated law. And they're not permitting sound answer /S actually recorded proper. And that would heal. It's because these are the answers that are correct, and they are being and haven't been replaced by fake things. Like men and women pretending that the breaching method caused things were caused by white supremacy or racism, because they also have uses by the measured mean, the integrity, in other words, the identity thefts and frauds method against the people A through Z, sickly, distinctly. So if you're a little kid and you hear that, you hear prejudice. That's true. But it's way worse than that. And the people pretending to be against the prejudice are the ones doing it, in collusion with the people that are overtly prejudiced, because they're sick of hearing the other collusions. And now no one could speak. And no one could stay silent properly and timed right either. Because the invisible, so we're not, if there's a range and there's a middle, even that is invisible but still discernible. Can only, there is still the hyper invisible but still discernible, juxtaposed with the invisible but still discernible. Like the value of the subject, like the subject, and then distinctly the value of the subject. The verb, the value, distinctly the value of the verb. For example, as a main verb, but the verb has an identity of volume. The subject has an identity of volume /S. Any language you're in. This is because of how our nature works, using what is actually recorded. See, but what is actually recorded works with the invisible but discernible, and the hyper invisible but still discernible. How it is juxtaposed with the physical but so discernible. See, but we have to have a quality of fact keeping nature first. People that are pretending to be for democracy are offensively affronts, having been criminally formed, victim predators breaching screens. This method knew that everyone would have to counter criminal insidiousness, criminal foreign influences. They knew we'd have to counter as fact cheaping nature the real causes of criminally foreign influence, positive and negative treatments, and identities at locations and uses of those identities. See, but you have how the people interbranch, have roles with each other, planting evidences. As the KKK theme, Confederate flag theme, also switching names roles. So people can't get the right response. They're showing to the little white kids how they force, trick, hurt, persuaded the sense and sensibilities of strangers as black families in Wethersfield through time. Wethersfield interbranch too. The Wethersfield State Judicial Branch offices in Wethersfield, the state prison offices, houses next to it, involved with identity theft, fraud, covering up lie progressions because they were little sick fakes in the background as victims, but as victim predators. Then they pretend it's personal when you call them sick fakes. They've been switching and forging names. They need to hide from evidences while planting more and more faked evidences. Well, I didn't see that. We're just going to address with this. They don't let you see it. Those are little scam courts. Way worse than there's a movie by Judge Dredd is the name of a movie with a comedian. I forgot his name. I can't do it. I can't do his laugh. He has a funny laugh. Eddie Murphy. Judge Dredd, way worse than Judge Dredd. Think about that. Slavery with color. Think about the metaphysics juxtaposed with the physics here, and the hyper invisible identity value. Where in other words, that means the hyper simultaneous, the value of the simultaneous. You cannot defend being for and uses of the value of the simultaneous, and you're going to entertain your logic trying to be for or against black or white. If you try to be that side, you're going to show. If you try to be one of those sides, you're going to increasingly be a fact cheaping nature style that is increasingly incapable of speaking the syntax relevant to where and how actually we are finite, individual, grouped, and species bound. Identity of volume /S. One volume, the hyper simultaneous, is making more of itself. Only the extent of it is debatable. That extent is being and having been debated. As with and as qualities of fact cheaping nature, also in collusion with that which is affront to the course of the short words and revelations, that which is hyper evidential uses of it, the proper outcome /S in cases has been prevented offensively, and that been used remotely pretending other. How are they going to do it? Well, pretend we're for democracy and we're against that. Forget that. Please, Anderson Cooper, search your soul. Think about how what that does when you tell a little black kid or a little white kid in New York City, per that narrative, white, whatever race, in other words, is what that white supremacy caused and keeps. Well, can't defend itself and pretend we're free, but they pretend anyway. How many people in New York City know that we're not free? How many people in cities throughout the world know that we're not free? How many people in suburbs? So this is where I want to understand where and how we need to make a counter theater. Not a movie like say some punk thing with a movie. Well, this is slavery. Let's have an hour and a half, or we're gonna do the Civil War. So we're gonna do two movies. It was one. Get down. Don't gather around. Vaccines. So we have means. that are being prevented because free speech and the quality of fact, human nature is prevented at locations. Now, all of a sudden, if they let it at locations, it's going to be revealed how they were exploiting exceptions, the exception nature, and making fake exceptions, which they increasingly have to do. Nature forces that. And the breaching method maintains it needed by them. Hid. The breaching method was sophistication here, and before the other countries were there. Came from some ancient times. Just reminds the most probable and practical to counter that, even if it's not still an operated overt, even if it's not an operated hyper archetypal criminal enterprise. That is what we can call that which is being and having been manifest, and we can search out what can't afford countering that. And if we conceive ourselves all as victims, and it's honest, that also simultaneously addresses the people hurt most by it. That also addresses our means for better than free. And even to where it can make it monetize it outside of taxes. And and take away all the kinds of negative things we have to respond to instantly. All those resources, what they call resources, then we can apply the resources to fixing the identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself, making it capable of revealing positive value, nature, progressions, action, natures, and its inseparable tie, distinctly from, non-distinctly from, too, though, our quality of fact, human nature, revelations here, and they're distinctly, non-distinctly, and hyper simultaneously. That increasing we bring evolution's fruits and gifts here means out of nowhere, from where we are, how we are, fact, human nature is quality, or it forces it from here, lethal IDs, force-based nature transfer. That is more probable. And that is demonstrable. Any system that entertains witch trials and laws against what you could build, since before cars, this was the designed to cause, even in the suburbs, let alone in the cities, designed to cause negative value, nature, progressions, action, natures. They built exceptions and exception nature specifically to keep out how nature wants and needs us to understand uses of exceptions and exception nature. And the breaching method was already that sophistication before computers came around, and they made words like arrays and exceptions. So there, in other words, it's all right to say you're successful because you have economic wealth, but don't say you're successful, that you're successful because of America's free. Till everyone's free, and don't say that you could speak for integrity or that integrity has been spoken for when overtly / insidiously, when anyone opens their mouth regarding white supremacy or Black Lives Matter. Everyone is measured and maintained, blaming other things, others, ourselves. And or we also juxtapose with delusions for the real cause of negative value, nature, progression, action. For the real causes, no one reaches out and admits sort of care for the people in New York City. That's what people really want, not just in New York City, every city, Hartford, Connecticut, cities in China, cities in Russia. We don't want people in that people staff. It's a rat trap that goes with the suburbs. We don't want either. We want the identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself that the Native Americans want. What really causes positive value, nature, progressions, action, nature. Even if we're going to stay on the mass farming, that's fine, but still have in place, paradise's elements, largemouth bass, frogs, worms in the soil, care to give the soil the nutrients to keep the worms there, to keep positive value, nature, progression. We keep throwing away the grass across the globe. Less worms every year, less strong worms. The whole food cycle becomes different. Negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures are even self-valued. That was measured and maintained. The identities of knowledge, you have to self-value them now. Nature will just take us away. Earth's distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to the rest of space nature, where it could make more positive, that is also positive onto itself, or because we're using its system. Excuse me, if we don't use its system, our value is forced from here. Earth's difference is forced through here as our own. So CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, please do what's right. In Connecticut, there's only 3 branches of government. They forge names, they switch names. All the little identities of their courts, various natures of courts, and of the same natures of courts, and their family members, a whole bunch of people with them. Little chop shop fake things because they had to hide their life progressions from since they were kids. Used as victims, speaking through other people, and as used their sense and sensibilities. Little child abuse reaction natures as adults in collusion with the overt criminal enterprise. Oh, but I don't like the criminal. I don't like the guns, and I wouldn't do those things. You guys are doing and having done way worse as being the only people that are involved with the locations, areas, and states, formerly 3 branches, and private. Offensively affront to the answers, the short words that we needed, the short words and evidence treatments that don't leave out what is hyper evidential when we don't need. And when they're putting fake evidences, you don't need, and someone comes before a court, someone says that's fake, in other words, get them on paper with the branches of government. They have their sources too. They're pretending in the background. They don't want to be known. I want privacy. Fred Grisey and others are recorded confessed them involved with sequence shifts when people with narratives with the mothers. They sustain while they're lying in backgrounds about me, forcing everyone to speak through others. Fred Grisey and people associated with the police chief, Cintron, and his daughter, Jessica Cintron, and Reno Mazzucato, his brother and sister and family. I don't have anything to do with them. Never seen Jessica Cintron in real life in my life. And this John Mayano, his brother and family, involved with 3 spots at the end of the Bronx Turnpike, various natures of courts, personally, criminally involved with them. People on Central Connecticut State University, various natures of police forms, and people involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones in other countries on off the campuses, intercities, through time, involve sequence shifts together. Predicate acts, roles, and cases together. Predicate acts, methods, roles, and cases together. So we can't keep having stupid people say the same stupid things as the only sophistication, and then pretending, using how they have all these resources and the knowledge of the most knowledge of the long thing of names with American history, getting over on what criminal justice is about, what really generated it, what really is using it. How are you going to teach American history? How are you going to teach what slavery is about if you don't teach about criminal insidiousness? You don't teach about that breaching method that was sustained. That was sustained against every single person, sickly, distinctly, while it was forcing people onto a value nature system, so they would have to make positive value nature progressions and value treatments. Tactically ulterior from the way nature wanted to. And then they would have to defend that. Increasingly, nature forces those individuals, groups together, those bodies to make, to have to hide that where and how too. They're simultaneously being forced to pretend to be integrity. That identity of integrity that was non-integrity and is non-integrity, but was breaching screen to a weapon. Worse, to pretend other screen what it causes and keeps. It's increasing motivations needed to be pretended other people's motivations, nature's needs, interests. Complete remote possession of modern countries, A through Z. Thank you, America. Please understand this, and please don't let people A through Z play these games, countering things wrong, and letting people counter them wrong. Boxing is strong, but give it rest and fight by the rules. Or stay fools, pretending other. No. Thank you.